Yeah, have your coffee. I got mine. I'm not. Who cares? Let's just do this. Let's get her done. How's
I
that?
don't look bad for a 65-year-old guy.
Yeah, I go through that in the mirror about once a day. You know, I've been working out at the gym, eh?
Well, and I just started back.
Do you have any idea about, you know what the most embarrassing thing about working out at the gym is? Getting caught checking yourself out in the mirror, right?
Well, I don't do that at the gym because I've never really, oh God, I should have worn a turtleneck sweater. Until I know that I'm the weight and the size that I am, then I just completely ignore it.
I gotta say, I really enjoyed the whole process. I've never done it before, and I just started going before I went to Cuba last. And it's
It's a healthy thing to do.
yeah, absolutely.
I mean, I lost all of my weight without going to the gym, but then it just became for stress,
Yeah,
given the work that I do. So I'm now on a flight to Vancouver on October the 1st, so I need to be going to the gym every single day.
well, that would be a matter of opinion, I'm sure.
Between now and then.
Okay, so I'm gonna sit down here. I think I'm almost there. I'm good. Close enough. So, well, you'll be comforted to know that I didn't do too much research, so you're clear.
There really isn't much, there isn't really anything scandalous and, titillating would be stories that I would have told the whole world for the most part.
Me too.
My departures from employers would probably not be, there would be nothing on social media unless I put it there myself.
I almost don't think that would be relevant. I had a couple of questions about that kind of stuff.
Right.
But first, I'd like to say thank you so much for this opportunity, Grant. I can't tell you how much I appreciate it.
Thank you.
I take it, I don't take it lightly. So I guess going into it, I was curious about your early days,
Mm-hmm.
and so you've been in front of a camera for 40 years or so, something.
Well, I've
30 at different times.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I would say I've been working 50 years. I would say that I've probably been in front of a camera on and off for at least 30 of them.
Yeah, one way or the other.
Yes. Yeah.
In thinking about it, I was a couple of things that were curious. One would be, how much insecurity comes with all of that
Mm-hmm.
in terms of every day,
Mhm.
what's going to happen today, especially live, which you've done lots of.
Mm-hmm.
And what was the what incident do you remember? The job that you got, or the episode that you walked away thinking, yeah, I made it. This is me. I deserve to be here. You know what I mean? Like
Mm-hmm. I'll respond to that when you ask it, because I don't want to think about it until I.
You can respond right now.
Oh.
How's that?
Okay. What was the, oftentimes people suggest that there was a defining moment
Yeah.
where they have arrived. I think for me, I don't think I truly believe 100% that I have.
Yeah, I don't think you had to today either, actually.
Yeah, I don't. I mentioned in a social media post, a Facebook post, I sat on a board of an adult literacy organization for a number of years.
Right.
And because I was a facilitator and a trainer, any opportunity I had back in the day to do any kind of workshop that supported adult education,
Sure.
I did, because I'm also a teacher of adults.
Yeah.
So I did a workshop that finally, after 2 or 3 years, I took money for. I took an honorarium because
Right.
normally I don't ever do that. I just say thank you for the opportunity.
This goes here and that goes
It's
there.
here.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, no, I get it.
And so I did this. It was public speaking for introverts,
Right.
and the participants of the workshop were all new to Canada, or they were individuals who had not really had any kind of formal education beyond high school, if even that. So when you're doing that, it is a challenge because you don't want to dumb it down, as
No.
we say, but by the same token, you need to understand that you've probably, because I will say, pat myself on the back before I go on, I've always been very, very blessed, whether it is because I'm entertaining, engaging, or maybe some people think I actually do know what I'm talking about.
Or how about incredibly empathetic?
To
the people that you're working
in this instance,
I
yes.
I wouldn't play that
Yes.
down in any way. Like, that's a huge element to that type of an environment to do it properly.
But when you do what I have done for a living, there is no time to break it down like that.
Yeah.
It's you do what you do, and with these, and the point that I was making was my workshops were always full.
Right.
So whether that was word of mouth, whether it was the subject matter, I don't really know. Yes, I'm entertaining. Yes, I'm engaging. Yes, I know what I'm talking, but I won't pretend that none of those are true, because you learn over the years that you don't open your mouth and talk about things that you don't understand,
Yeah.
because that leaves you vulnerable to criticism.
I've
And I
never actually learned that lesson.
Well,
Well, I've learned to go away and research. Like I'm a bit of a Bill Burr kind of guy.
mhm,
I shoot from the lip,
mhm.
intuitively, and then I go away and I check. And I don't mean that in a derogatory way. If I'm getting into a serious matter, then I don't shoot my mouth off. But generally, varying opinions on that.
I was going to say depends on who you're speaking to.
Yeah, I suppose so. But I like to do my homework after. I like to get my intuitive take on something. For me, it's important. And then I go away, and then to whatever degree I'm wrong, I'll come back and say, well, you know what? I did my research now. This is where I land on this, and I would suspect that your intuition's pretty good.
It is,
On
and
those
had I listened to it,
Earlier in life,
I would be a great deal more successful than I am. And really, you as an individual, or you define what success means, and that's the challenge. Being a man of a certain age and having grown up at a time that was very, very different. We've talked about this before.
yeah.
You go and you do your work and you're paid to do your work, and that's it. That's
Yeah.
as far as it goes.
Yeah.
I mean, you mentioned earlier when I started out, so my first job was selling magazine subscriptions.
I was wondering what your first job was. So door to door.
So, yes.
Nice.
So that was my full-time job at the time.
Good training.
As someone who had, as many people know, my life was certainly not a walk in the park, filled with enormous periods of abuse. And I left home to get away from that environment. So it really was not being able to find my behind with both hands, and really not being qualified to do anything.
You know, the contradictions for me in those days, and even up till I was like 25 and beyond, was I worked 7 days a week, 16 hours a day from the day I left school at 15. And like yourself, happiest day of my life was going out the front door of that
Yeah, it
school
was-
because I got away from all of it. And if I worked hard, that was my identity. People, oh, he's a hard worker. Your employers always liked it. It protected you. If you work, nobody's going to fire you if you're a damn good worker, right? So you're
Well, in theory.
in theory.
I certainly am an example to the
But it's
opposite.
funny because I was, for example, in real estate. I started in real estate in '82, And I was like, I just right away, I would go to the office at 6 in the morning every day because I went to have my aircraft at 6. And so I immediately became top sales fairly quick. But money never really meant anything to me. It was about, like, I had to be at the top of the food chain in order to be comfortable around anybody. It was really weird. It was a really weird dichotomy because my motivating factor was never really money. It was more just not sitting still for sure. I mean, not comfortable in my own skin, so you just go 7 days a week. And
I was never motivated by money because I never had any.
yeah,
I grew up in what would be defined as poverty.
yeah,
Was raised by a single mom, so that was a child raising a child.
yeah,
My work ethic came from my mother, and let's not pretty it up. It was survival, period.
yeah.
It's really, I mean, I have an incredible work ethic that really stems from having to put a roof over your head and food in your stomach. So it really was, how do you survive?
Right.
It really had nothing to do with, am I choosing to go in this direction because this is what I want to do? It was, I'm going to go from this job at $12,000 a year to this one at 14 to this one at 17. And when I hit 21 in the world of not-for-profit,
Yeah.
I thought I'd died and gone to heaven. I'd never made so much money in my life. But that's when the Grant Peckford that's sitting here now began to evolve.
Right.
And that was by truly realizing that I'd made a choice that went beyond the dollars and cents for survival.
Right.
I wasn't motivated. How can you be motivated by $21,000 a year? Albeit 1987.
Yeah, 21,000 was
But-
pretty good in those days.
Really.
Yeah.
But, you know, I was living at $50,000 a year because,
That's what you did.
God forgive me that I didn't have any more sense than that. But
Yeah, no kidding.
so, yes, I mean, I guess I was however old I was in 1987 when I started at Harborfront, and that was the beginning of my education, really. I went back to school the first time at 40 to be a teacher of adults, but when you work in not-for-profit, you wear many, many hats, and in doing so, you're provided many opportunities to learn. So the first time that I stood in front of a group of people, it was so sad. So very, very
I have a
sad.
funny story about that myself.
Just, I had no idea what I was doing. I faked it.
I did a course for real estate investment and mortgage financing at Humber College.
Mhm.
They just, I have no idea how I got into it, except for I phoned about a course and they said, well, we have this, but we need a teacher. So I just did it. No post-secondary school education.
Nope.
And just, and I did a terrible job of it. And I did 2 semesters of it, but it wasn't very good. My reviews weren't very good from the students, and rightfully so, because I never prepared for anything. As you know, I wing everything.
Yes.
Well, that's not conducive to a problem.
No, not to education. You need to have.
You kind of have to have some kind of a criteria plan.
Unless you're really, really good.
Well, and you've been doing it for years, and you
Yes.
know your subject matter completely. But I had none of that. I just
Yeah.
winged it, and it was okay. It was an interesting experience, and I got on about my business after that. But for me, I can never, my attention span's about that long, and you may have noticed. I could be building new homes
Yes.
today, and tomorrow I will be doing
Yeah.
some music, and then tomorrow, the next day.
Yeah.
Well, over the course of my career, like I was top sales for my entire first year of real estate and going into my second year. Would have been easy. Buy a couple of properties a year. It would have been wealthy by the time I couldn't do it. I got interested in nonprofit housing, so I did the first nonprofit housing project in Keswick, Fleming Court there, and bought the land. And I made the government give me the money. Did all the government grant applications, the need and demand study myself, which I was quite proud of.
As you should.
Yeah, and they all, how government money works. The consultants on the outside somehow have some relationship to the people on the inside of government, and the people in government love the people on the outside that are consultants because all their work is done for them. I don't want to put a negative connotation on it, but it's a really negative thing, actually. Yeah. So they come to me and they said, you have to use a consultant. And I said, no, actually, I don't. It's public money. I've prepared all the documentation. It's correct. I've done it. And they said, so I phoned my member of parliament, Bill Scott, and he said, let me get back to you. And he phoned me back in 10 minutes. He said, phone this number. It's Dino Kiega, the head of Canada Mortgage and Housing. He will take care of you. And I phoned him. He said, yeah, come down for lunch. And he invited me down. We went down to Villa Columba there. And he went over. He said, I went over your paperwork. It's all fine. Nobody will bother you. Just carry on with your process. And I got a call the next day from, and the woman that called me, her husband was the consultant that they were trying to send me to. Like that kind of stuff went on all the time. Anyway, but so I don't know how I got off on this tangent, but it's my.
Well, because I'm going to say, as a life skills coach, I can clearly tell you why you moved in the directions that you did. But this is about me. So.
Well, go ahead. I'd be interested in that.
No, I mean, there was always more than one reason for.
Yeah, no, I could just never be settled into one thing for some reason ever.
And that's the piece you should have focused on to figure it out, but you were too busy for a myriad of reasons.
I was a lunatic. Believe me, I was a lunatic. You know, anybody would ever try to help me. Like if I would make a mistake on something, and they would see that, they'd be trying to help me to fix my mistake so I don't get it, whatever. And then right away I would hear that, and I would go, I wouldn't hear I made a mistake, here I am a mistake, right away. And I'd rip their face off. And
so how did that work out for you?
Yeah, well, I'll tell you, it collapsed. It always collapses in the end when all that stuff collapses in the end, and it did for me, which was good because I come around and but they would go away. They would just go away, and I would think, yeah, I straightened them out. And as they're going away, they were thinking, what a lunatic, and they get on it, and you never know. You never know that. You just think you took care of it. I mean, that's my really early days and how convoluted and some of them, all of it, I wasn't a bad person either. So I mean,
well, I think they're two very different, very different things. I mean, I was in my very core a kind, considerate individual who was very, very broken, very broken.
Yeah, I couldn't
describe
it better.
That's
This is a really good. This is a really good. This actual portion of this interview, I believe, is a really good lesson for anybody who is young, starting out, trying to figure out moving forward. Everybody chooses a career, whatever it is, doesn't matter. But wouldn't you say that the main thing, if a young person was going to do anything, would be like find out who you really are?
Because the millennials, I mean, they have choices. I'm just saying millennials because they're at the top of the food chain at the moment. But I didn't have choices. I had to do whatever I had to do to survive as a result of the circumstances of my life, were not of my own doing.
No.
Initially, they certainly were moving on. But it really is who are you, and then it's why are you choosing to go in that direction. Because that may be for all the wrong reasons.
Yep.
But the one thing that I have said about this whole retirement thing for me is, if I have made absolutely no other decision, I've made the decision that I will never ever do anything I don't want to do again.
Right on.
So I think if you have the ability to make the choices that move you in a direction where you don't wake up one morning and go, oh crap, I absolutely hate this. Why am I doing it? I mean, did I like going door to door to sell magazines? Are you kidding? I was the most introverted, insecure kid, let us say at 16.
Jeez.
What was I thinking? Well, I needed to get out of that environment, and I needed to have a job that gave me a paycheck that lasted all of 3 weeks. Because even then, I knew that I couldn't possibly engage in a public way, never mind sell something to anybody.
Right.
Well, haven't things changed?
Yeah. Well, you know what? You find yourself as you
Yeah.
move along in different. And boy, when I think about who I was then, but again, like well, that was another. When you're talking about those days, 15, 16, when your first jobs,
Mhm.
and you mentioned the core of who you were was a kind and caring human being, and me too. And I had some incredibly dark stuff going on.
Mhm.
But they were just my own demons or whatever it was. But you know what's funny is is your upbringing. God love your mother
Yes, yes,
and my mother,
yes.
and because you tend to live in your head to avoid all this other stuff.
Mhm.
And if you've had a good upbringing, then your intellectual decisions will be decently, properly right and wrong. And you get through
In
large.
theory.
Well, in theory, but in the areas where it matters, or in the areas where you would do other people harm, or in the areas
Oh.
of, well, and in my case,
Yes.
raising my children, for example.
Yes.
Like all my intellectual decisions were about right and wrong. Now, when it comes to self-destruction, or self-destruction is a pretty dramatic term.
Well, but that's what it was.
Well, counterproductive.
Well, that's a kinder, gentler way.
Yeah,
yes.
isn't it? Yeah, so there you go, nice touch. So anyway, so when it comes to the counterproductive stuff, as long as it was only hurting me, then I wouldn't even give it a second thought about whether I should be doing this or not. Like, that part of the equation never came up. I could handle myself, I could do whatever, so I'm not worried. Nothing ever really bothered me. So as long, the equation was always, is this hurting somebody else? And if it was, then you wouldn't, the proper intellectual decision would be you wouldn't want to do that. And so a good upbringing
Yeah.
brings you back. You always fall back on how you were raised, I guess is what I'm trying to say, and thank God for that.
Yeah, I mean, I avoid looking here because my mother is staring back at me. I think I've said this anytime that we've engaged in this way. I mean, I am very definitely my mother's son. There is no question. I am so really not my father's child at all. Well, he was never around, but in my teens, I had this horrible temper that, according to my mother, I got from my father.
Oh yeah.
So, yeah, I think at 16 or 18 or 21, I had no concept of anything around life or who I was, what kind of person I was, how I made my decisions. That really did come to me in my early 30s when I reluctantly put value to myself. But without question now at 65, very definitely my morals, my ethics come from the environment that I was raised in, even though it was quite violent and horrible at times. But I do think when you live that abuse, you know that there's got to be something else.
The right or wrong aspects of, and social aspects that the parents give their children.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what your situation was, but I can tell you with my situation. My mother worked 2 jobs, 8 kids, dad drove truck. So she did the best she could for who she was. So for whatever abuse I went through and so on, because offenders had access to me, whatever, however you want to call that. But the consistent from 0 to 15 when I left home, all of it was the right and wrong. From my mom, you don't do this, you do that, you don't, based on whatever she had a fire and brimstone religious upbringing, but she was a really decent person. She did care. She would never lie. She wouldn't. So all the stuff that you take from there, that's the stuff you fall back on later.
Well, it was never rocket science.
No.
Being raised in the 50s and the 60s, there were no choices other than right or wrong.
Yeah. Well,
It was
and
like-
right or wrong defined by.
But yes,
But
so
the right or wrong from then is still right or wrong today.
oh, very, very definitely.
When you
but,
start breaking it all down.
But I would never have questioned what was right or what was wrong as a child, because it would not have been accepted. So, I think, they talk about, what is it, life is wasted on the youth, or I don't know what that old cliche is, but, when I think about if I only knew then what I know now, which people have been saying forever and a day,
for centuries.
would life have been different? I don't know. I think you make choices that you make based on
Who you are.
and the circumstances of when you're a survivor, as I have had to be.
Yeah.
That is the basis for your decision making.
Yeah, 100%.
So it's not you're not afforded the luxury of screwing around and saying, well, maybe it's no. In order to survive, I've got to move in this direction, whether I like it or not.
In order for who you are
Yes.
to survive, based on your own skills, how you view the world, how you view direction, how you view success, how you view
Well,
I couldn't have done
but I'm a chameleon.
Yeah, well, you know what? Not a doubt, but I got 5 brothers and 2 sisters, and they all tend to I got my brother Dennis. He's at Snap-on Tools for like 30 odd years. Mike, he's head of union, and I envied that they could just sit into one job and be there forever, and I could never do it. I could never just settle down, and it's some kind of a.
That was my intention from the very first job I took, because that's the way I was raised.
I don't even think I was raised. I was raised with a pack of wolves. That's how I kind of. I said, lovely wolves, lovely wolves.
Yeah, I mean, again, the choices just weren't there. When I went to work for Harbourfront Centre, and I stayed there for almost 18 years, that felt like being at home.
That must have been nice.
A, that's the way I was raised.
Yeah.
You stayed till you got the gold watch.
Yeah.
Even though I knew that wasn't true. But again, that was the foundation that was built for me. Now having realized enormous success as a person from that 18 years at Harbourfront Centre,
Sure.
I can say I stayed at that party 10 years too long. I should have taken that knowledge and that experience and put it somewhere so that at 65 I might be retiring with a pension.
Right.
But I embraced that environment of arts and culture, the freedom of being a gay man, and that being embraced because apparently I was creative as a result of that, which was so not true,
Yeah,
but those were the times.
Some people mistake flamboyance for creativity.
Well, I don't. Well, yes, I certainly have been called flamboyant. I would
I'm
prefer
just kidding.
to suggest that I'm a big personality, but no, hello, of course. By
I meant to say fabulous.
well, I was always fabulous.
Well, there you go.
But it's true. So again, when I look at my journey, there are so many things that I experienced as a result of my gender to some degree, my sexual orientation. I don't really know when I reached a stage of my life where I thought it's okay to make choices. Because I do think underneath changes in career or changes in job, I don't know that it was really all about, I'm an adult now, I'm a big boy and I'm going to make this decision. I mean, I know I have left jobs where I've just said, screw this.
Yeah, I need this.
I'm not doing this. I mean, this isn't goodbye.
Yeah, of course. It never is, even when you think it is. Well, listen, Grant, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Thanks for, like I said, this for me was as a neophyte by your standards in this business. Thanks so much.
My pleasure.
Could
Thank
you lean forward and say goodbye, everybody, and hit the red button?
Bye-bye. Oh, hit the red button. That's not red. Oh, that red button, the square. That one. Hey, Georgina. Bye-bye.
Tim Dambrick, Georgina Life. Thanks, guys. We'll see you soon. Thanks, Grant.